Hello, this is David Sloan Wilson for Evolution, This View of Life, the magazine that approaches anything and everything from an evolutionary perspective. I am with Daniel Kruger, who is at the University of Michigan, research assistant professor at the U of M. Hello, Daniel.
Good afternoon.
And Daniel, I'm talking with you about a new special issue that you put together for the Journal of Social, Evolutionary, and Cultural Psychology on applied evolutionary psychology. And you put this issue together with Nick Armenti, who is at the University of Medicine and Dentistry of New Jersey. So, and this is, of course, a topic that's very close to my own heart. And tell us a little bit about you, your own background, and because you're a pioneer of applied evolutionary psychology, and then how this special issue came about.
Sure. Well, I've had interest in a pretty broad range of areas, and some of this is the product of my particular training experiences. I did my PhD at Loyola University in Chicago, and it's a program in applied social psychology. So I learned the basic traditional, research of, academic experimental projects and surveys, but I was also working with a community psychologist, Yolanda Suarez Balcazar, and through her and some other folks, conducted a lot of research that was in applied areas. So we did community surveys, program evaluation, and I picked up geographical information systems.
Right.
We worked with a variety of different organizations and entities in Chicago, and through my experiences, initially with her, and then later at the Center for Urban Research and Learning, which is a academic community partnership at Loyola. It's pretty broad. So they do everything from research projects to give fellowships to journalists and such who write about community issues. And I really had the in-depth experience of community-based collaborations for improving local neighborhood conditions. So I've continued with that line of work, and that actually relates to my part of my current work in the Prevention Research Center of Michigan, where we collaborate with community partners on applied research. So I lead community health surveys, and we evaluate programs and really help generate the data that's really helpful and useful for people in the community to understand community health patterns and neighborhood patterns and enhance their abilities to make positive changes. So this is the very practical, applied oriented side. And I've also had strong interests in evolutionary research for quite some time, and I wasn't really aware of the ongoing evolutionary psychology and other research programs when I originally entered graduate school, but I fortunately encountered it during my studies.
Right, well, U of M was a center for that at that time.
What's that?
Was this at the U of M?
No, I did my PhD at Loyola Chicago.
Okay, so this was still at Loyola.
Right, and I'm pleased to say that the faculty were always supportive of me and encouraged me, but there wasn't anybody there who was an evolutionary researcher. So after I completed my PhD, I wanted to get that sort of hardcore evolutionary research experience. So I was very fortunate to be able to get an NIMH postdoctoral fellowship at the Institute for Social Research here at the University of Michigan.
Right.
In psychosocial epidemiology. And this is a program that Randy Nesse was one of the faculty members of, so I was able to work with him using evolutionary theory to understand health patterns, mortality patterns, and was also able to get wonderful experiences with the other evolutionists on campus, informally sitting in on classes and lectures. And
back to my earlier observation, the U of M was a center for that at that time.
Right. Well, I mean, there are still quite a few people on campus, it's sort of there's a lot of great researchers and a lot of great people with evolutionary interests, although they're kind of spread across campus. So that's one in each, one in a department. There isn't real concentration like where you have an official degree program, but there is a lecture series, an event series, the Human Adaptation program that Randy Nesse runs so that provides sort of the space for evolutionary thought through speakers and events. So it's still a very active, very active place for evolutionists.
Right. And so what did you find? So someone trained and applied in community psychology, what was the added value that you found from an evolutionary perspective?
Well, for one, I think it gives us a better and deeper framework for understanding the patterns that we see. I mean, there is a lot of great research in community psychology and public health and related areas that explores neighborhood patterns and shows how they relate to social conditions. But right now, it's really not as deep theoretically as modeling as I would like. Sort of like good things go with good things, bad things go with bad things, and we sort of expect to see the results we do, and see things that are pretty intuitive. None of the research findings would make a big surprise to anyone. But I think what added value that evolutionary theory and particularly life history theory brings is that it really shows how different, especially different specific factors of the environment really shape people's psychological and behavioral trajectories in predictable ways, and show things that you wouldn't expect to see with just the standard models. So if you're looking at neighborhood conditions, of course you would expect to see relationships between social capital and fear of crime and youth development and time perspective. But using the life history model, you can really show how the neighborhood conditions influence the time perspectives and behavioral strategies of youth, and how that leads to patterns of risky behavior. So it provides a deeper model and a deeper understanding, and not just in terms of adding on additional layers of explanation, but I think makes some really interesting and counterintuitive predictions even. So that, I think, can help advance our understanding of a lot of different social issues in ways that go beyond standard fairly data-driven models.
Uh-huh. So give a quick example from your own research, and then we'll start to describe the special issue that you put together.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well,
I still remember, by the way, some of the graphs that I've seen you show. This is way back now of sex differences in mortality across cultures. I don't know if that's the example you're going to pick, but those are very memorable research that I still remember after many years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great, and that's the long line of work that Randy Nesse and I collaborated on, and we basically showed that the sex differences in mortality rates, mortality rates between men and women at a particular time and place and age, are strongly driven by the intensity of male competition. So if you have factors, like socioeconomic inequality or reproductive inequality, those intensify male mating competition, and that leads to riskier behavioral patterns, which leads to higher mortality rates. So that's one line of work that I hope eventually has downstream information on to inform different health programs and policies. And now I'm working on other demographic patterns, in particular the sex ratio of a population, and looking to see how that influences health outcomes and behavioral patterns.
Oh, that'll be awesome.
Mhm.
Okay, well, now enough work has been done by others that you and Nick could put together a whole special issue, which is a wonderful sign of progress. And the articles are kind of clustered in different topic areas, one of which is mental health. So tell us what some of these articles are about that are on mental health.
hmm Well, Dan Glass has a really interesting review of obsessive compulsive disorder and how OCD can be understood in an evolutionary framework. We have a paper looking at ostracism by Eric Wesselman, Kip Williams, and others, looking at how ostracism can be understood. And Kevin McDonald has a paper on conduct disorder and how conduct disorder can be understood, especially in relation to the reactivity and affect intensity system.
Tell us, what is conduct disorder?
Well, it's basically all these things that would be classified as problematic behaviors. It's a DSM-4 diagnosis. So it's related to impulsivity, strong attraction to reward, antisocial behavior, and aggression.
Uh-huh. So give us just a flavor, either for any one of those. Just what is the evolutionary perspective? What, if it's possible, in a brief space?
Well, I think that each of these provide good insight on the particular topic. I mean, I think that Dan Glass's piece on obsessive compulsive disorder, where he really reviews this and shows how obsessions and compulsions really can be understood by different levels of evolutionary framework. So he really takes all the different possible evolutionary explanations for the existence of mental disorders. That it's an adaptation, trait shaped by natural selection to solve adaptive problems. That it's a mismatch. It's a trait that once was adaptive, but now can be maladaptive or distressing in a novel environment.
Right.
That it's a byproduct, not directly shaped by natural selection, but arises as a result of selection out of other traits, or something like balancing selection. It's harmful in some circumstances, but maintained because its benefits, offset the costs in particular environments.
So this is the same list of major hypotheses that biologists use to evaluate traits, and Dan is using it to evaluate OCD,
Right.
basically.
Right. So he's looking at how OCD traits, things like forbidden thoughts, violent, intrusive thoughts, could relate to possible normal functions of brain systems, and basically showing how these are basically extreme exaggerations of what might be for adaptive functions. So if you have a system that's, to avoid danger, it's a precautionary system, then if that is hypersensitive, you might see why people have these obsessive checking rituals, making sure that the oven isn't on, or making sure that the doors are locked, and things that could are plausibly related to cues of danger, but it's just taken to extreme. Also, one of the major features of some people with OCD is obsessive cleaning. So, having a really, really strong fear of contamination, and they respond to that by continually cleaning and washing. And to some degree, this makes sense because pathogen avoidance is really important. We really don't want to get an infection. Especially before we had modern antibiotics or medical treatments. Getting E. coli or some other pathogen could be really bad for us. But again, this is basically taking something that may serve an adaptive function to an extreme by having hypersensitivity, or over focus in this area. And even something like hoarding, you might have heard of this TV shows where they have people who are hoarders and they fill their house with all sorts of stuff that takes several trucks to haul out when they finally clean up the house. And this is basically excessive resource acquisition. It makes sense, to build up resources and supplies. I mean, these are things that you might need, but at the same time, if this is taken to an extreme, you don't, if you look at this, from an outsider's perspective, one person really might not benefit that much from having every single copy of the newspaper dating back 15 years.
Right.
But, again, these are all things that seem to be related to useful functions. It's just that the system itself is overactive.
Right. And so the same theory that can add understanding to mental health, I can do the same for neighborhoods and communities. So we have another cluster of articles on that topic. Describe those a little bit.
Yeah, well, there's a paper by Dan O'Brien that looks at a lot of the different community activity that have been informed by evolutionary theory, including the Binghamton Neighborhood Project,
Right.
And some of my own work. So he's really highlighting a collaborative model, how researchers, especially those with an evolutionary perspective, can work together with communities to help improve the local community conditions, using a very powerful scientific framework. And then you have Tom Dickinson colleagues who talk about teenage pregnancy, and they use a life history framework, which I think is again a really, really powerful framework to understand why you're seeing these rates of teenage pregnancies. And I think this is one of the examples of how this research goes beyond bad things are associated with bad things, good things are associated with good things, because it shows how this might really be strategic in the sense that we have this evolved psychological system related to reproduction, and if we're getting environmental cues that shape our life history, then we're going to respond in the ways that our ancestors would have, in ways that would have facilitated reproductive success in our ancestral environments. But today, we have our modern culture that has far outpaced any kind of biological evolution. So now when we see these patterns, we think of things like teenage pregnancy as adverse outcomes, and something that we're trying to reduce because of the negative health consequences and social consequences.
Right. So and then there's some additional papers that don't cluster, but which are represent important topics in their own right. I'll list a couple of those.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's one about public policy, and one on environmental ethics, and one about tabloid journalism. And
Let's focus on that one.
right, we have quite a range. I mean, there are a lot of different areas, obviously, where evolutionary theory can be applied, and maybe to focus on one that I really a paper I really like by Mark Pratarelli. It's called "When Human Nature Confronts the Need for Global Environmental Ethics."
Right.
He's basically talking about why we're in this environmental crisis that we're in. And, long story short, we have really, expanded our potential for manipulation and control of the Earth's resources, as well as our power to destroy. So we have modern technology that has a much greater impact than any technology that our ancestors, had to use. And thus, when you look at, human motivation and, motivations for competition and, building up resources and whatnot, you can see how combining these motivations with powerful technology can result in a condition where we're being short-sighted in the grand scheme of things, because people are proximately motivated to build up status and resources and things like this without taking into consideration what's going to happen in the next generations as we use up all these petroleum resources, as we continue to pollute the environment and warm the planet. So a lot of these consequences are going to happen over the span of decades or even centuries, but the time horizons that people are typically operating on are much shorter. So it talks about the need for having a global environmental ethics that really takes in this longer time horizon.
Yeah. And so the JSEC, the Journal of Social, Evolutionary, and Cultural Psychology, is a open access journal. All of these articles are available to everyone, and we will provide a link, of course, to the journal as part of this article.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we're really excited about, that these articles are accessible by anyone, anywhere in the world. And that's why we're really glad to work with JSEC on this special issue, because it provides easy dissemination. Our whole goal is to get, evolutionary insights, evolutionary informed applications, into the minds and the hands of those who might, gain some understanding from it and be able to put it to good use. So therefore, it's nice that it's not restricted behind, a hefty subscription price or, any institutional firewalls, to get out there. So we're pleased that everyone will be able to reach these articles.
Right, and when I talk about this, I say that there's three waves of evolutionary thought. First is the biological sciences, of course. That's the wave that everyone knows about. Then there's the academic study of humans. That's the wave that was started anew in the late 1980s, and that was the wave that you and I caught. And now there's the third wave, which is using evolution to improve the quality of everyday life, and that wave is only just starting. So I'm really happy that this special issue has come available, and congratulations for putting it together.
Thank you. Well, we're really grateful for everyone who contributed to the issue. We saw that the interest was there, and we decided to have this special issue to try to gain some momentum for this movement.
Yeah, and I should mention that there's a society associated with this, right? The Society of Applied Evolutionary Psychology.
Right, Applied Evolutionary Psychology, and they have a Facebook page, so people can go on Facebook and look for Applied Evolutionary Psychology Society, or APES, and see what the latest and greatest is.
Awesome. We'll join that group, and then we'll see what develops. Okay, Dan, that was great. Thanks a whole lot.
Okay, great talking to you. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.